Hello everyone, welcome back to Magic Stew. I am Kyle Lott. If this is your first time joining us, welcome, 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 welcome. You can see my recording space. Ooh, special, very special. It's a little different. I noticed our last couple recordings, I kind of looked like a weird ghost man, like there was a big dark shadow over my face. And I looked like a Sith Lord, kind of, a little bit. So, new space. A little better lighting, hopefully a little better sound for all of you guys. So with that in mind, let's just jump right into it because we have a lot to discuss today. And today, we're talking about the Standard Bannings. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the article that Wizards wrote, and I also want to talk about my opinions on these cards, what I would have changed if I could have changed anything. And we're going to start off with what I think are the really, really good bans, the good decisions that Wizard made. Because let's be real here, we got to give them credit where credit is due. They did some good stuff this time around. I'm going to turn one more light on. Much better. Less of the dark shadow in between my eyes. Good Kyle. Bad Kyle. Good Kyle. Bad Kyle. All right, enough of that. So let's start with the first good ban, and the one that I want to talk about is Rogue Refiner. Now, in my mind, a good ban is a card that not only helps a major archetype succeed, but one that if you take it away, doesn't completely kill the deck. And Rogue Refiner is, of Wizard's own admission, an amazing value creature. It helped the Teamer Energy, the Sultai Energy, and the 4-color energy decks generate some card advantage. It also helped them gain some incidental energy, which helped with their main strategy, helped enable things like their Whirler Virtuosos and their Aether Hubs. And in addition, it also helped them filter through their deck and gave them a 3/2 creature. By taking this card away, you are in no way completely disabling energy decks, but you are taking away one of the things that helped them be consistent. And I think that's an excellent call. Again, by taking away something like Rogue Refiner, you're not completely gutting the energy strategy. What you're doing is just making it a little bit weaker, a little less consistent, making it harder for them to filter through their cards and find their bombs like Scarab God or their removal like a Harness Lightning or things like that. I think this was an excellent, excellent ban. The second ban, and probably the ban that I think Wizards did the best job on, has to be Rampaging Ferocidon. And not because I think it was a super dominant card in the Ramen Red deck. On the contrary, I think if you were really trying to ban a creature from Ramen Red that you wanted to sort of like hurt them, I would have banned something like Bomat Courier, which helps them sift through a ton of cards. Carry Zev remains to be like one of their best 2-drops. You could have banned Glorybringer, which obviously they side into that in match 2 to help them get past big creature-based decks. You could have banned Hazoret if you really wanted to go nuclear with it. But I honestly think banning Ferocidon is a good call. Again, not because it's the best creature in that archetype, but ultimately because I think Ferocidon actually stops certain decks from being a part of the meta completely. At the beginning of this year, there were a lot of cool things being done with the tokens deck, either a black-white tokens list or a black-white-green, so an Abzan tokens list, using things like Hidden Stockpile and Vraska, Anointed Procession, Adanto, the First Fort, basically to generate some really cool value. There was also a tokens deck that featured Marionette Master in basically as the all-star token maker of this deck. And those decks, any deck really that goes wide, is punished brutally by Ferocidon. I mean, every single time you made a token, you're just pinging yourself and just bringing yourself that much lower to be taken out by a Lightning Strike or Ramen Ruins or a Hazoret off the top or Hazoret's activated ability even. So I honestly think this was a great call, especially now that Vampires, which is a deck that looks like it's going to be contingent on that incidental life gain from their tokens, is going to get better, which is really cool, especially now in Rivals of Ixalan. We've got a lot of Vampires support, but that's another deck that really wants to go wide with things like Oketra's Monument. And they couldn't really get any ground against Rampaging Ferocidon. This is a ban that is less about hurting one specific deck and more about letting other decks flourish in this format. So with Rampaging Ferocidon dead and gone, it's going to be kind of exciting to see what players cook up in the token and the vampire lists. I'm really, really excited about it. I think that Rampaging Ferocidon being taken out of the metagame at this point opens up a world of possibilities for us as Magic players. I think it's a really, really good idea. But like all things, I think Wizards made some great decisions. I also think that Wizards made Two really, really bad decisions. And I want to talk the first one about the first one I think is necessarily a bad decision, although I don't think it's completely egregious. I want to talk about Ramen Up Ruins. Obviously, it is the namesake for the Ramen Up Ruins deck. What this card does is essentially gives extra damage when you absolutely need it. It's an uncounterable burn spell against control. It's something that your opponent really can't interact with, and over the course of a game, a single Ramen Up Ruin might generate anywhere from 4 to 6 points of damage if you're lucky, and that's really kind of the big thing with it. It's interesting to consider this card. I think Wizards talked about this in the article, and this is, of course, my interpretation of their article as well, which link will be in the description of the video if you would like to take a look at the announcement that Ian Duke made. They said that Ramen Red, it was one of the most dominant decks in the meta, and it is, but I think the data that they released is inaccurate, not in the actual numbers of it, but I think in the context of it. I don't think Ramen Red is, quote-unquote, one of the best decks in the format, or one of the best possible decks that can be played right now in Standard. On the contrary, I think I'd put it somewhere like 4 or 5. I think that in the context of current Standard, it's one of the decks that just had the best matchup against the de facto best deck in the format, which was Temur Energy, or 4-color Energy, or Sultai Energy, or any one of the energy variants. I think because of that, the data that we have is skewed. And I think removing one piece of it from the deck, which is Rampaging Ferocidon, is enough, now that energy is getting nerfed, to allow that deck to sort of float to a relatively decent spot in the meta. I think by taking away Ramen Up Ruins, in addition to Ferocidon, you've sort of defanged the mono red deck to a point where it really isn't going to be able to do very well moving forward. And I'm actually really worried about that. I think the data that they gave us was highly, highly, highly skewed because of the fact that that deck had such a strong energy matchup. And I'm nervous, I think, for the mono red players out there moving forward into this meta. The Ferocidon ban made sense, but the Ramen Up Ruins one, in addition to it, and in addition to energy getting sort of banned out, I think is a mistake. I would have waited, I think, if I was Wizards, a little bit to see if you needed to ban Ramen Up Ruins moving forward. Which brings us to the elephant in the room, and I don't mean Greenbelt Rampager. Let's talk about the Attune with Aether ban, or Aether ban, Aether, however you could pronounce it, either way. Okay, I promise I'll stop with the bad puns. This is something that we've talked about. My local play group has talked about, and that I've talked to some people about online with at length before the ban happened, and I was like, there's no way they're going to ban Attune with Aether. Energy might get hit with the ban hammer, but I didn't think they would go so far as to ban Attune with Aether. Now, in the article, Ian Duke talks about basically having to ban this card because they wanted the Temur Energy deck in particular to be a little more conscious of the choices that it was making in deck construction, what colors you were playing, how many of those off-color cards you were playing. They wanted to make it so that this deck, a dominant deck in the format, can't simply play all of the best cards. And Attune with Aether definitely accomplishes that. And in their defense, too, energy makes up about 40% of the meta right now. Granted, that's 40% of the meta across anywhere from 3 to 5 different decks, essentially. I mean, they're doing a similar thing, but it's still 3 to 5 different decks. It's not like it's just one deck list that makes up 40% of the competitive Standard metagame, but it is still a pretty egregious split, I think, between all of those things. So I think that there's a reason to consider banning Attune, certainly. I also think that they were worried that if they banned a different card during this round of bannings, that energy would continue to run rampant over Standard, and then if it didn't work, obviously, then they would have to come back and ban Attune again. So I think rather than sort of like make a lesser option first, they went for the nuclear option, which was banning Attune. And there's a number of problems that I have with this, I think, as a strategic ban option for Wizards. First things first, it's not just the Temur Energy builds that are running this. The Abzan tokens list ran Attune to help fix its mana. I've seen the white-green cats build ran Attune to fix some mana. Blue-green merfolks, the early blue-green merfolk builds, also ran Attune to fix their mana. I run Attune in my blue-green pummeler deck, again because I needed the incidental energy and it helped me fix my mana for stuff like Cartouche of Knowledge or Spell Pierce off the sideboard. So there's a bunch of strategies that did use Attune, and those strategies are being punished because of the dominant one. So I'm a little skeptical of that. In addition to, I think this actually kills energy as an archetype. One of the things that we just talked about with Rogue Refiner is that a good ban doesn't completely destroy a deck. A good ban makes it so that a strong deck gets a little weaker but can still be played. The central strategy, the core strategy is still present, and I don't know if it is now that Attune with Aether is gone. I think the decks that did play this, the Temur Energy, the 4-color Energy, and the Sultai Energy builds are going to find themselves whittling down in options. For example, I think the Sultai Constrictor Energy build is just going to go strictly black-green. I think it's just going to want to be more consistent now that they no longer have access to things like that. A few of them might splash for Scarab God, but I don't think those decks are going to do very well. I don't think Temur Energy is going, or 4-color Energy is going to do very well. I don't think Temur Energy is going to do very well. I don't think 4-color Energy is going to exist after this ban. I think that's a big mistake here, and I think it would have been more beneficial to ban a card like Whirler Virtuoso or Bristling Hydra that sort of has more incidental value and allows for less interaction in the long game. Like, for example, it's really annoying to play against a Whirler Virtuoso when your opponent has like 9 billion energy, because they make a bunch of Thopters, they block, they hit you in the air, and it feels like you're not really making any progress. It's really annoying to play against a Bristling Hydra for the exact same reasons. It's like, oh, there's this giant big creature that I just can't interact with unless I have board wipe, which is really annoying. I think either one of those would have been a completely reasonable option. I think going nuclear in the beginning is just a mistake. But we'll see moving forward. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think Standard is going to be in a peculiar place moving forward. I'm not sure what to say about consumer confidence. This is the second big round of Standard bannings that we've had in basically a year and a half, following the bans of Aetherworks, Marvel, and the other ilk that were in that round of bannings. Standard is in a rough-ish place. So I'll be interested to see what happens with it moving forward. And hopefully you guys will be interested to see what happens moving forward. I look forward to seeing all of you, hopefully at local FNM at some point. And if you want to sleeve up a Standard deck against yours truly, I'll be around. What did you guys think about the Standard bannings? I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say in the comments. So again, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We read all the stuff. Liam and I both do. We've loved the growth that the channel has been experiencing over the last couple weeks. We're up to 30 subscribers now, which is such a cool thing for us to have a small community around Magic Stew, and to watch something that we built and that we're both really passionate about growing. So regardless of how you feel about Standard, drop us a line, talk to us in the comments. I'm really interested to see what the community has to say about these bannings, because I have a lot of opinions about it, but Magic players are an opinionated bunch, so I know you guys have some stuff that you want to say too. So make sure you drop us a line in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Magic Stew. And as always, I'm Kyle Ott. I'll catch you next time.